Hi, thank you. I'd like to thank Tree for having me and for all of you coming. I think she read all the blurbs on the back here, so I don't really need to introduce the character. Elizabeth Siddle was quite fascinating to me, and the story is almost like a broken metaphor. It's rather ghoulish in the end when she died of an opium overdose, suspected suicide. He had buried his poems with her, and then later he had her body exhumed in a rather ghoulish way. In any case, it's an interesting story, and writing this, I realized what started as a collection of ekphrastic poetry ended up being about the female struggle, creating an artistic output. So I'm not very good off camera, so I'm just going to read. Found. You were chosen for your curious gray eyes, voluminous hair with a ginger sheen, a bonnet shop girl with no prospects, plucked from obscurity, a real stunner. He brought you into a circle of loose-haired women in luscious color. Here you found a place for yourself, the world sanguine, the sky vast. Before his touch, the world was an empty canvas longing for exotic Venetian hues. You admired his hands, cuticles pushed back, nails trimmed to slivers of moon. With every caress, paint glowed, vibrant blues and emeralds. In a world glossed by color, why would you dream of darkness? Housebroken. This is based off a painting called The Pet by Walter Devereux. She stands in the doorway, on the threshold between home and garden, peers inside a birdcage. It is no wonder pets love their captor, well-fed and doted upon. The canary is full of melody, the dog lazily snuffles at your feet. No cares gnawing at the bone, all kindness and kisses, so you think. Protection has its cost. Birds flounder in sorrow, wings clipped, they feel for the hand reaching in as one feels toward a punishing God. Yes, they are pampered, given teeny treats, fed daily morsels until docile and blithely paunched. The dog, taught to beg for affection, must always please. If it disobeys, the hand that now lovingly strokes the ears of soft cushion will strike quick as lightning, pain pulsing through its skull, the high-pitched yelps, its nose rubbed into the mess it made. Possession. Cinched at the waist, the corset embraces you as though it were a lover, a firm hold to keep you buttressed against unruly inner expansion. His flat outline folds into the heights and depths of the heart's origami, while you are told restraint is attractive in a woman, a rigid upright back and disciplined curves. Blush. This was based off a painting called Venus of Ortica. And it's off a little, I did a lot of research for this book, and some of the things I read I found immensely amusing. So I'll just read you something that Ruskin, it was a conversation he had with one of Rossetti's patrons. This is from his letters. Of course roses have got themselves talked to from time to time, but really, if one was to listen to the scandal about flowers, gardening would become impossible. So I wrote a poem about that, called Blush. Roses bloom extravagantly against her skin, its perfect paleness abated by a slight pink, as if a statement on the rush of blood such a woman produces. Ruskin, too prudish to snivel about sensuality, condemned the flower's coarseness, the respectability of roses in question. Fanny Cornforth, that was one of Rossetti's mistresses. Just a model, he tells you, but you know better. You too were once his model. You agreed to sit for him, with a chaperone present. But this woman goes to the studio alone, makes easy company with men. She stands too close, laughs stoutly at their jokes, clutching a hand just above her breast, as if to draw attention to the dip of cleavage. Who is this woman who is nothing like you? Face large and round, she cracks walnuts between her teeth, spits out the hard shells, accepts her payment in beer. How to escape demands. There are no demands to care for younger siblings. Fix dinner and neatly fold sheets if your back is sore when you stand for long periods. If you refuse to eat, pushing the roasted vegetables and morsels of flavor to the side of your plate. If you're sullen and tired and cannot find the energy for social engagements, Refuse to dress in buttoned-up lace, extending a gloved hand. If you say you have female problems, you'll be left alone to work on your art. There are no demands to scrub floors, cook pot roast and potatoes, or have dull sex if you sleep more than you should. If doctors don't know why you're sick but believe that you are, insisting that warmer climates would do you some good. Recommend smelling salts or mineral spring baths. If people think your art drains and overtaxes your delicate female mind. If your prescription is to stop painting and the agony stitches your spine tight. If you take laudanum for pain, you will be free of the domestic duties most women cannot escape. There are no demands, none at all. When you take 100 drops of opium dissolved in a glass of alcohol every day, for medicinal reasons, of course. If they offer you rosemary lamb shakes, croquettes rolled in breadcrumbs, lavender-scented tea, but your hunger is gone, you're unable to eat and vomit when you do. If you are disoriented, depressed, tired, and restless all at the same time, you will tell people not to disturb your sleeping child, though she is dead and buried. A Victorian Beatrice, based off the painting Ada Beatrice. He chose you as his favorite model, made you both mistress and student. For hours you sat motionless, the feelings in your arms gone dead, while he drew you thin and pale, with hands and mouth curled shut like a bud not yet bloomed. The illness that kept you weak, withdrawn into the darkened rooms with blinds snapped shut, did not affect your splendor. The dove places a poppy in your hands, your hair in a static red. He thought you looked most beautiful while sleeping, painted you languid and heavy-lidded, as if your eyes had nothing to say except when mirroring his own. Rebirth. When you died, he declared his muse forever lost. As the coffin's lid lowered, he tucked a manuscript between cheek and hair, a dramatic gesture befitting the first Dante. 7 years later, at his command, a bonfire was lit. Your corpse exhumed, hair rumored to fill the coffin, rubescent and coiling. His manuscript now removed, each page disinfected, the stench of alcohol dissipating as pages flap wet on their line. Still, his soggy poems could not be deciphered, ink smudged as if by a wet thumb. That ends the historically based poems. The second part and third part of the collection is either based on fairy tales or my own imagined musings about who would be interesting if she talked to these people. Painter without hands. She weeps over useless stumps. What is the point of keeping oneself clean and sinless if the body will be torn from itself in either case? Her desire is to paint, to hold the smooth, varnished handle, cup saturated shades and cracked palms, the citrus dye of a liquid orange daybreak. Butchered, the knob-born shorn skin twists like thick branches blown from a trunk, bluntly chopped short before the edge of sky. The opiate's seduction. The poppy beckons you, its whirl of sedative stamens a promise of undying devotion. Come with me, it says, I will take away your pain. At first you refuse its budding beguilements, but the day-to-day clatter of cans continues alongside your coffined reveries. You find it harder to resist. Drawn in by its crumpled beauty, its adornment of the dead, sometimes you believe its ruffled charms, its capsuled intoxications. Startled by your own wild face, your indulgence for cruelty, your cheeks burn rage while you cry alone. You stalk the pounding of your pulse, track it through inner borderlands, seek to kill all that threatens the grace of your slender frame. Only the sound of its familiar voice, soothing, can calm. Lay down your head, it softly calls. Sleep, my pretty, now you will sleep. Those lines are from The Wizard of Oz. Elizabeth Siddle and Marilyn Monroe in conversation. They sit and chat, stir cream into coffee, like longtime friends swapping recipes over the kitchen table. Since their desk, they spent barely a minute apart. Lizzie, as Marilyn calls her, loves to curl Marilyn's hair with an iron, wishes such things were invented in her day. Marilyn teaches Lizzie the proper way to apply mascara. They giggle like schoolgirls into the wee hours. Is that really you? Marilyn asks, pointing to a Rossetti reproduction. It doesn't even look like you. In fits of laughter, they roll about the bed in pajamas and fuzzy slippers. What about this? Lizzie teases, holding a Marilyn doll. I can't imagine your hips so small. They organize study groups and book clubs, complete with egg salad sandwiches and jasmine green tea. They relate to Hardy's tragic heroines by their lips when reading the colors. Tennessee Williams often sparks a debate over the worst kind of lover, but Goethe is her favorite. Young Werther's death scene always turns on the waterworks, each offering the other tissue. They share stories of unhappy marriages, lost children, and drug addictions. Lizzie preferred laudanum, Marilyn diazepam. Revealing the details of their deaths, they promise never to tell. Cut the tips of their forefingers and gently press them together. Elizabeth responds to Christina's Belleville Market. Christina was the sister of Dante. Christina, let me tell you plainly, goblin men don't hide in dusty alleyways selling orchard fruits, sun-kissed and forbidden. They are the men you know and love, artists with a lustful curiosity for lower-class girls, their interest beyond the mere play of light on bare shoulders. They do not offer plum peaches and rare pears, but gifts of furs, dresses of magenta silk, crowns of profuse, delicate buds. They offer beauty and velvet textures never before felt, paints of swirling sapphires, glittering emeralds and ambers. What gray stone girl could say no to such intense color? You think sisterly love saves all, but what do you know, sitting with your nuns? You, jilted by a false suitor, thinking yourself above other women, alone with your God, reserved and pious, a dried rose shut in the pages of a book. Your brother saved me from austerity, brought me into his world of color, taught me the beauty of pure pigment, the vibrancy of blue. Now he is leaving, goes dancing with other women, brings them to his studio to paint their faces, adoring him. I no longer inspire him. He no longer offers me color. Do you feel any compassion for me, sister? You who reject me as your brother's wife, dismiss me as a butcher's daughter. Versions of you. In the hushed morning I read accounts of your life, written by everyone but you. Your words are few and scarce. I am drawn to your tragedy. My life quietly lived among books filled with passions that are not my own. It is a sadness in your stone gray eyes I seek, to feel what you once felt, to see beyond gilded surfaces, to own the grief that empties itself again. But such things are never as they seem. Rumors of a suicide note destroyed, hair that kept growing after death, gossip running in mouths. What I know of you is mythology. He painted what he wanted to see in fading oils, erased your words, rubbed out what you intended to leave behind. My love never pure, he divides us, standing between knowing. Fetish, based off the paintings of The Lady of Shalott by William Hunt and Dante Rossetti. The death of a beautiful woman is, without question, the most poetic of all topics, at least according to Poe. Hunt and Rossetti seem to agree. Across the pond they argue over who illustrates what, the moment the curse takes possession, or the moment the corpse cruises down to Camelot. Both want the dead woman, but Hunt acquiesces. A moment of transgression and sexual surrender is still doable. Cracked mirrors and curses can be fun. Hunt, a stern moralist in sexual matters, at least when it comes to how women behave. The lady's hair is disheveled, her arms bare. Tapestry threads bind her feet, as if to punish her for daring to leave. Certainly, she is culpable, he thinks. Rossetti, for his part, focuses on the wonderment felt at a dead woman beautifully boat floating, her face turned, surrendering to the viewer's gaze, her body stuffed into a corner, her feet caught off by the frame's edge. What is it with these guys and feet? Mrs. Beaton's cooking class. She was a Victorian, what is happening? She did cookery books and gave domestic advice, that sort of thing. In today's class, Mrs. Beaton, looking stiff and Victorian in her high ruffled collar, stirs her bechamel sauce. Dorothy dips a finger into the simmering pot, takes a quick taste, thinks of her life with William. The pot roast she made on Sundays, seasoned with fresh thyme and rosemary she picked from the tiny garden behind the house. While she pushed away from the table, he asked for more. She gathered metaphors, spun stories of gypsies and beggars, scanned the rolling hills and fields of daffodils. She harvested images. fed him words served alongside tea and warm buttered toast. In class, Mrs. Beaton demonstrates to Elizabeth how to peel an artichoke. Blanched and tender to the touch, she slowly pulls the petals down and away from the velvety center. Elizabeth forces into the thumb, smiles sheepishly at her clumsy hands. Mrs. Beaton laughs, reminds her to savor the pleasure of her creations, whatever the outcome. Her corset drawn tight, she appears matronly, layers of rigid crinoline under a full skirt. Yet things have changed. She's no longer the same woman. She now talks of jouissance, of pleasure scooped with a persistent tongue. And the last poem I'll read is one of the first that I wrote a decade ago. Elizabeth paints a second self-portrait. In heaven, paint is free. God encourages everyone to take art class. Creative expression should not be underestimated in its ability to heal old wounds. He uses therapy himself. No longer on the path of destruction, floods, fires, the usual antics of a wrathful God, he now teaches art. Soothes the spirit with yellow ochre and burnt umber. Like children, they paint with their fingers, smear the palest blue into the whitest paper. This is the sky. Elizabeth does not participate. She has other things to work on. She looks to the clouds, imagines the sun, and paints her face for the second time. There is no hint of darkness, no deep shading to the side of her nose. This time, she paints herself smiling, though no one may see it. Thank you.